The Utah Jazz win their 6th of their last 7. So they expose Victor Wembanyama's weakness, and Colin Sexton steals the show with a 360 dunk. It's a fun night in San Antonio, and we're talking about it coming up on POSTCAST.
You are Locked On. You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
David Locke along with Ron Boone as the Utah Jazz beat the San Antonio Spurs going away 130-118. The Jazz tonight at the end of one trail. The Spurs have been very good in first quarters. The Spurs really followed their trend of the season, which is the Spurs are the 20th best team in the league in first quarters. They led by 5. And then the Jazz had a monster second quarter, scoring 37 points. And then the third quarter, the Jazz stretched a 4-point lead to 7 and blew them out in the fourth quarter of this game. And what turned out to be a big-time offensive night for the Jazz. Lauri Markkanen, 31. Jordan off the bench with 24. Full strength Utah Jazz team tonight. A lot of different areas to go, but this was kind of Naismith created a game that's interesting, always been interesting to me, that 100 possessions is about the right number by which the better team usually wins. And this was a case that the Jazz are just better than the Spurs. The Spurs are unusually bad. They're not a roster that I look at that thinks they should have lost 23 of 24. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But the Jazz are better than they are at this point. And the way the Jazz are playing right now, having won 6 of 8. And I just felt like that attrition kind of won this game tonight.
To count the number of times the Jazz have scored almost 100 attempts, boy, I don't think it's been that many, has there?
No, 130 is a lot. But the Spurs allow it about every night.
Yeah, and that is probably going to be their Achilles heel for the rest of the year, if that's the way they're going to continue. Popovich doesn't seem to be as animated or as we're used to seeing. And, you know, I don't know, you can judge the talent on that team. I think they have some shooters, kind of question the system.
Yeah, no, there's some Bill Belichick, Greg Popovich parallels right now that feel very accurate. The game really is busted open. Will Hardy makes an interesting move. He goes in the fourth quarter. He goes to Lauri Markkanen at center and plays, I think, Fontecchio, George, Clarkson, and Agbaji. I think is how he started it. Brought Colin in at some point. So he plays basically 4 guards and Lauri and forces Victor Wembanyama to guard Lauri Markkanen. And the Jazz start playing pick and roll, old school pick and roll where Lauri sets the pick. Keontae came off the pick, hit a 3. I think Clarkson hit one coming off a pick, and then Lauri popped out, forcing Victor who wants to play drop, not to be able to play drop, and then to have to go out and guard. And Lauri show the fact that this is where Lauri, there's not a lot of 7-footers in the NBA that can shoot 40% from 3. And so the Jazz really using Lauri to his best advantage. Yeah,
knowing that Lauri can shoot the 3, that keeps Victor honest and keeps him defending Lauri that far away from the basket. If they're going to give that up, Pop is going to have to figure out some kind of rotation to the point where they can, keep Victor as close to the basket as possible. Something similar to what the Jazz were able to do with Walter Kessler, like last year, like last year. But brilliant coaching there by Will, by putting Victor in a situation where he had to stay with a shooter. That opened up the lane. And even with that, David, you break the defense down, it's only one step and he's going to block your shot from the backside. So you got to be concerned with that.
The Jazz are just a notch better at everything they're doing right now. Now, it certainly helps to play Detroit and San Antonio. Let's not misunderstand. They beat Toronto, who's a team that's struggling. They've lost 6 of 8. And we have not gone through murderer's row recently. But frankly, the way we were playing earlier this year, I'll speak for myself. I was terrified we were about to come to Detroit and play them on a 24-game losing streak and San Antonio on a 23-game losing streak and lose both of them. Like, that's how we were playing earlier this year. So we are definitely playing better. We are not going against murderer's row, but we are playing a great deal better. Just defensively, we're a notch better. Offensively, we're a notch better. What are you seeing in that regard?
Well, what I'm saying, David, is that if we don't beat those teams, where do you put us?
Well, that's where we were, I thought.
Right, exactly. So by beating these teams, that puts us in a position, as you just mentioned, improving every basketball game and getting position where you're in possibly getting strong enough where you can beat some of those, what is considered to be some of the better teams in the NBA, especially on the road. I mean, very competitive at home, but to stay in those in the ball games against some of the elite teams in the NBA is something that the Jazz are trying to put themselves in the position to do.
I didn't see the final numbers on it, but the Jazz half-court defense was really good again tonight. And it's interesting. There's a comment here already that, like, I'm worried about our zone defense. I think you got to watch yourself a little bit on this. I've gotten caught on this too. When someone hits a three over the zone, it's loud. It feels big. You're not recognizing the two previous possessions where they didn't score on the zone. Because the numbers are coming out okay almost every night on the zone. And the Jazz half-court defense in the first half was an 86, which is elite. By the end of three quarters, it was a 95. Where the Jazz had a hard time tonight is the Spurs ran down their throat. Through three quarters of basketball tonight, the Spurs were averaging over 2 points per possession in transition. And in the fourth quarter, they stopped getting some of that transition, and then they left them in the half court, and that's when the Jazz ran away with the game.
Not necessarily in that first quarter. That first quarter, I thought that the spacing that the Spurs had kind of got an advantage with the Jazz zone, especially with the three-point shots they were getting and the three-point shot they were making. After that, things started to change, and then all of a sudden they're able to run. And you're absolutely right about, as far as the numbers are concerned. But these coaches are smart. Coaches and players are smart there as well. And so you're going to have to pick your poison sometimes on what you want to give up as far as your defense is concerned.
I mean, the Spurs are not a great example because they're not good, but the Spurs shoot 52% tonight at the rim, which is not good. It's like in the bottom 10 percentile. So that's the Jazz half-court defense having impact. They have an amazing night from three. They shoot 16 of 35 from three, and the Jazz win by 12. Yeah. Like teams shoot 46% from three. You're not supposed to win. So
yeah, without a doubt.
Like a lot of things went pretty well for the Jazz tonight. The fact the Spurs shot worse on twos than they did on threes.
So you're looking at the Jazz.
The Spurs shot worse on twos than they did on threes tonight. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They shot 45% overall and 46% from three. So that means they had to have shot worse on twos. The other one the Jazz did tonight was back to the old offensive rebounding days. They were dominant on the offensive glass for a lot of the night. They end up with 35% of their misses or offensive rebounds. So that's how you overcome this and win some extra ball games, is by the Jazz grabbed 13 offensive rebounds tonight off fewer misses than the Spurs had. So the Jazz offensive rebounding numbers were really quite good tonight, got them extra possessions. And when they get extra possessions, that's how you overcome some of these things.
It's amazing how different ways you can win basketball games. And that's why you have great coaches. They realize these things. They have great assistant coaches that remind head coaches that we're getting taken advantage of in this situation. So, okay, let's do this and let's do that. I mean, just improvement as far as players are concerned. Coaches try to improve their coaching throughout the ball game there as well.
Jordan Clarkson's been back for two. He had 30 the other night off the bench. He had 24 off the bench tonight. This is the Jordan Clarkson the Jazz need. He was wildly inefficient, one of the most inefficient players in the NBA prior to his injury. If they get this guy, they're pretty good. I mean, when Jordan shoots well, the Jazz win. Like, frankly, if you look at the numbers, Jordan is our bellwether. His wins and losses numbers are really dramatically different. So if the Jazz can find this guy off the bench again, this would be a big find for them.
Yeah, that's huge. And also I'm thinking of, okay, off the bench for Jordan Clarkson, that takes him back to the sixth man of the year when he was so dominant and just really pushed along victories for the Jazz. You got Colin Sexton, who can also play that role there as well. But I think Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench is maybe they'll leave him there. He had 24. He only played 27 minutes tonight and 24 points. That is great numbers, for a guy.
Well, Colin and Jordan are basically our two shooting guards. They play some together, so it's not 48 minutes. It's actually about 56 they play by the end of the night. The two of them combined for 44 points, 14 assists tonight.
Yes.
Like, that's pretty awesome. And if the way to get it is to have Colin start and have Jordan come off the bench, then maybe the Jazz have found something.
Yeah, I really think so. And I don't think they can play together, though.
No, they cannot. Or rarely play together. Yeah. Or play together with a point guard. How about that? With neither of them as the ball handler, they might be able to play together. on that. Taylor Horton-Tucker's having the best month of his career. He's averaging 17 points a game. He's shooting like 48% from the floor, 45% from three. He misses one game with a foot injury coming off his best game of the year, and now he's out of the rotation. Will Hardy has too many players right now.
He has some guards that are really playing well, sticking it out. I mean, sticking their nose in there, shooting the ball well, just doing a lot of good things. I think the reason he didn't play tonight was, okay, let's give Sensabaugh some minutes.
Oh, I mean, he's not in the rotation, though. I mean, like,
but that's only one
we
game.
had a 10-man rotation right now. He's just not a part of it. There's just too many guys.
Yeah, that's true. And then I was surprised that Keontae got the amount of minutes that he got tonight there as well.
Well, the interesting one tonight in the Jazz is no player played more than 30 and no player played fewer than 18. You almost never see that. Yeah. This is going to be wild. I'll be honest with you. We've won 6 of 8. Things are really, really good. This is going to be interesting. This is a huge challenge for Will Hardy to manage.
And a lot of times, David, you look at this and say, what a luxury.
Yeah,
It's not a luxury.
I don't think it's a luxury.
It's not a luxury.
I mean, he's going to have some real managing to do. And Will says, hey, the X's and O's and all that's a great fun, and I love it, and that's my favorite part about this. But team psychologist and managing personalities and making sure everybody knows what's going on is 90% of the job. And he's got a lot of that's got to get done right now.
You know, coaches get gray hair, you know.
Oh, he's going to get his by 36. We're pretty certain of that. He might get him by 35 with everyone healthy. All right, really interesting. Jazz have won 6 of 8. We head to New Orleans, who's kind of been up and down and all over the place. Zion Williamson. Jazz have going to come home on a 5-game road trip with a winning road trip with more wins on this road trip than they had on the road the entire year prior to the road trip. Pretty impressive what this team's doing right now. Yeah. 6 of 8, 3 in a row on the road. Playing really, really well. Star me up, Ron Boone, Jordan Clarkson, and whom?
Boy, I tell you, and the toughest part of this is that the backcourt deserves it, but Lowry really made the big difference in the ball game. So we have to say Jordan Clarkson and Lowry.
What did Will Hardy say at the beginning of the trip? Guys get paid in the NBA for fourth quarters and road games.
There we go.
And Lowry Markkanen's getting paid for a reason at some point in this process.
He had 4 threes in the fourth quarter.
Tonight, his fourth quarter was mammoth. Jordan Clarkson was great. Our 2 most high-profile players take home the stars tonight. Jazz win it over San Antonio, 130-118. Thanks very much for tuning in. We will now send you to the first ever 24/7 YouTube national sports stream. Is this true? Is this true?
Absolutely.
Do we believe this to be true? Discuss amongst yourselves. We now send you to the first ever 24/7 national sports stream on YouTube. Locked on Sports Today. Have a good one.